typically, when the SEC does something like this, people either settle or they hire lawyers and they hire crisis PR firms and they just quietly fight. You've decided to do something quite unusual. You sued the SEC back, and you have taken this fight into sort of a very public forum. So can you explain why? What drove your decision to do that?
I've always fought for principle and fought for truth. Being able to live with myself is probably the most important thing to me that defines me. And if you follow that path for truth and you fail, then at least you know you've walked that path which is true to the self. I had no choice but to fight for my truth. For 15 years, I've worked tirelessly to save more than 240 companies from liquidation and 700,000 jobs associated with those companies. And this just isn't right. It's just not correct. And I needed to fight for that truth. And I had to be public because I have tens of thousands of employees and their families who depend on me. So to sit quiet and to fight from the background would have given great fear to my people that I was backing away and that something was wrong.
Now, let's talk for a moment about the sort of the heart of the SEC's action. Case isn't quite the right word in this case, but so they're basically suggesting that you exercise discretion, or too much discretion, or discretion that you perhaps weren't supposed to have in terms of characterizing the loans in these portfolios. They said you didn't mark them down to reflect the real performance of some of these companies and the way they were paying back the loans and the interest that they owed. What did they get wrong? I mean, are you saying that that entire premise is wrong, or is your argument that you actually had the right to do this and the investors knew it?
I mean, use my good faith business judgment. So first of all, yes, I think this whole fund has been built on the use of my good faith business judgment. But everything I did was fully disclosed, and that is I was able to use the contractual rate of interest in my trustee reports, show exactly how much interest was paid, and then give the characterization of that loan, the category. And so every investor, every very sophisticated investor in these funds was given actual information that described exactly what I was doing. And there are no valuations in these funds. There's a categorization, and there's a holding value that comes with that categorization. So frankly, I think that they misstate, the facts with great inaccuracy.
Do you feel confident that your investors really understood what they were getting into, and that they were, by investing with you, giving you this amount of discretion over the valuations or the characterizations of the investments?
It was blatant at face value for them to see exactly what I was doing, and they invested in a person who buys companies that others would liquidate and takes a long and winding path to restructuring. So they knew that they were investing in deeply distressed companies, so it would not have come as any surprise that many of these companies were still distressed. And my good faith business judgment is actually what's at the heart of all our contracts. And yet everything was disclosed in exactly what the contractual rate was, the categorization, and exactly how much cash got paid. So for anyone with any kind of sophistication, the mathematics was right there for them.
What would the consequences have been if you had more aggressively marked down the values or the performance levels of some of these loans? What would have happened?
Well, you mean if I would have defaulted them? If I would have defaulted them, then funding is not available to them, and most of these companies would have been liquidated. And then, of course, if the companies were liquidated, then and the assets were gone, there was a broad possibility that the funds would have unwound. But that would have happened from the very beginning. If every company that didn't pay its full interest was immediately defaulted, had no access to capital, and liquidated, then the funds would not have gotten off the ground, and that was not what the investors bargained for at the beginning of this deal.
Is it possible that some of the investors were hoping to gain control or more influence over the operations of the companies, or something, a more direct involvement in the investments through this default process? Is that?
No, that's certainly not my understanding. The claims that the SEC has made were never claims made by the investor base. These are all new. The investors have asked questions over the years on categorization or the absence of full interest, but they've never made these kind of claims. They understand what's at the heart of this contract, and once things were explained to them, they dismissed any questions.